Welcome back, movie fans. This is the podcast Sequels Suck, and today that's a global outage for you. Welcome back, movie fans. This is the podcast Sequels Sucks, where we discuss. I've done it again.
I think we just keep all this in. I think this is just the intro to this episode now.
By definition alone, they're inferior films. Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Sequels suck. Films.
Welcome back, movie fans. This is the podcast Sequels Suck, where we discuss sequels, reboots, and remakes. And today we have the sequel to the 1996 smash hit Twister, and it's called Twisters. And I'm actually really excited to talk about this movie because I want to hear your take on the original movie starring Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt in 1996, Twister. Give me your take on that movie, a quick, or when you first saw it, did you see it when it first came out? Because I've got an interesting backstory to share.
I don't have any interesting story per se about Twister, but I love Twister, the 96 Twister. I saw it at cinemas multiple times and then hungrily gobbled it up when it came home on VHS. It is like one of my probably top 20 films of all time, if I'm being honest with myself. It's one of those movies that, like, if I was in a house and every time I walked into the lounge room, it was on the TV, every time I would go, thick. Not once would I be like, Twister again. I'd be like, nah, I get it. And it doesn't matter. It's one of those movies, doesn't matter what point in the movie you walk in on it. You just, as soon as you walk in, you know, you're either coming into a really awesome action scene or you're 5 minutes away from a really awesome action scene at most. Like, you come in, you're like, oh, this is going to be the good bit. Every time. It's brilliant. I think it's a perfect movie. I don't think there's anything about Twister that I can complain about. Even in 2024, when, you know, it could be one of those movies where the effects completely fell to shit, but like, Twister all the time. I love it. It's my favorite. How did you experience?
Well, I'm on the complete end of the other end of the spectrum. I had never seen it until recently, so it was. Oh, he's just spilt his drink. He's in shock.
No,
you shouldn't be totally shocked, but maybe I mean, a lot's happened in the last probably 18 months. So I can't remember if it was you or Michelle or both of you saying, "Oh my God, you haven't seen that movie," and it's like
probably
that,
both of us.
And then I pretty much I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go get it, and I remember picking it up on Blu-ray for like $5 or something like that. So I'll tell you why I never saw it. And I'm annoyed at myself because I do like Bill Paxton, so that should have been enough. But I think when there was this huge, and you would probably remember it, there was a massive push, at least in Australia, advertising for Twister. There was commercials all the time on free-to-air TV. Every movie you went and saw, you saw the trailer to Twister leading into that movie. I always feel like everyone was like fascinated with seeing the cow. And that was like their wow, I'm going to see this movie with the cow and the tornado. Like,
it's such a good scene.
It is, but I mean, to me, that was something that felt gimmicky. I'm like, if you're going to see a movie just for a cow and a Twister, that's a bit of a, you know. Anyway, I don't know what it was. It never grabbed me as something I needed to go and see. And it was just, again, one of those things like, one day I'll see it. And I had some friends that saw it and enjoyed it, but again, it was one of those ones I feel like a lot of people went and saw it, but I can't remember, at least in my circle of people really talking it up enough for me to go, oh shit, I better go see that. So it was just one of the ones that sat on the to-do list and just, I just never, and you know what, it sounds horrible, but I'm not a huge Helen Hunt fan, so I understand she obviously, what was that show I was Mad About You she was in? Was it Mad About You?
Yes, what was that show? You know it was Mad About You.
And I don't know. It's just like, I feel like and again, it's harsh, but I feel like if it was a different actress that I was more fascinated with, I probably would have seen it by, early days. But I don't know. It never grabbed me. But like you, I watched it again recently. I probably watched it about 12 months ago. Watched it again recently. It's now on, I'm pretty sure it's on Amazon Prime or Netflix, one of the streamers that I've got at the moment. And really enjoyed it. Most of the effects hold up pretty well for the time. I think there's probably one or two shots that are like, that's starting to look a little bit dated, but overall, Really good, and it's got a good cast. It's got a really good cast.
It
So,
has an insanely good cast.
mm,
Like everyone in that cast is incredible, and even the guys who have like one line as sidekick number 4 of the bad guys, like
yeah,
they are all incredible character actors.
mm,
And that that is something that I think is a really good jumping off point for
mm,
Twisters,
mm,
because right out of the gate, I feel like that's something that we're missing. We do not have a supporting cast of fantastic character. Now, when we talk about Twister, some of the supporting character actors are Todd Field, who only made 3 movies, but has gone on to direct 5 movies that have all been nominated for Best Film at the Academy Awards.
mm,
Philip Seymour Hoffman,
yeah,
before anyone really knew Philip Seymour Hoffman. Carrie Yules or Elways, I don't know how to pronounce it anymore.
yeah.
The guy from The Princess Bride. Like everyone who's popping up in this movie, even in small roles, you're like, holy shit, that's such and
Mm,
such. I get that that's a rare thing. It's really hard to replicate. We got no one. And that's
yeah,
not to say no one who's in this movie is a good actor. I think everyone in this cast is a good actor,
mm,
but we don't have like this generation's greatest character actor just popping up as a crazy guy called Dusty in this
mm,
movie. Everyone is like, have I seen them before? I think I've seen them before.
mm.
I've definitely seen them before. I don't remember in what. And then you kind of forget. And what did you think about the sort of the elements of the supporting characters, given that the first one, like that was one of its defining features?
Yeah, I was surprised, and mind you, this if you're listening to this podcast, thank you. Thanks for supporting the podcast. But there are spoilers, so I'm going to be ruining the movie. If
Oh
you
my
haven't seen
God,
it.
so many.
Um, I was actually surprised, and I don't know why I didn't see it coming, but I kind of knew. Obviously, everyone knows Glenn Powell's in this movie, and the other girl, the other main girl, I don't even know her
Daisy
name.
Edgar Jones.
That's it. Yes, Daisy Edgar Jones. They were obviously front and center of all the publicity and what we're seeing. And the other guy again, I'm terrible. I haven't even got
Anthony
his name.
Ramos.
Is he the other main?
The other main character, yeah, the
Yeah.
friend who brings her back in, Anthony Ramos.
Yeah, so I know him from. He was actually in the last Transformers movie. He had a big role in that.
He was indeed.
Um, So I knew of him.
In the Heights, he's a musical theatre guy. He's done lots of.
Okay, and then
He
the
may
other-
have been. Oh no, I don't know if he was in Hamilton. I won't say that out loud in case the Hamilton fans come for me.
but
He's
the
a musical
one,
theatre guy.
the one that I was surprised with was Kieran Shipka's in the movie, and I
Okay,
didn't.
I'm so glad you brought this up.
And I was going to say, I hadn't seen her advertised at all. I'm like, oh, cool, she's in this movie. And then, oh, she's dead in the first 10 minutes. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah, it's
yeah,
they treat it like she's a nobody. Like
Yeah.
her character, her casting, the way her character's presented, like it's again, we're talking spoilers, but in the opening of this movie, when Daisy Edgar Jones and her crew are going out, you're like, everyone's going to die but her. That's just blatantly obvious.
yeah,
I expected the boyfriend to die first, not last, but that was only a twist. The other two, I was like, oh my God, they're going to kill those two. And I was in the cinema watching, I was like, that actress looks so much like Kiernan Shipka. It's uncanny. But it can't be Kiernan Shipka because obviously she's just fodder for the twister and she's going to get killed in about 30 seconds.
mm,
And then I was looking, I was like, that is definitely Kiernan Shipka in glasses. Like, oh, maybe like the 2 girls survive and the 2 boys die because
mm.
this movie is definitely killing someone. And then when she died, I was like, is there going to be a ghost in this movie? Because there's no way Kiernan Shipka dies before the credits in this movie and it just never comes back. And she does.
Mm.
Like, I was flabbergasted. Why wasn't she one of the crew? Why
Yeah.
did they get her in this movie to just suck her up in a twist? And they didn't even play it like it was going to be a twist. You know,
Yeah.
like executive decision. You know, it's Kurt Russell and Steven Seagal, and then boom, twist. You know, 10 minutes in, Steven Seagal's dead. You don't expect it. Like if they had played up that she was a major character
Yeah.
and then killed her, I could have understood. Why the hell is she in this movie, Cable? What the?
I
She doesn't do
don't-
anything.
I'm surprised, and that's what made me think. Oh, surely she must die pretty early on because I hadn't seen her in no publicity, and I feel like in this day and age, anyone that's remotely, again, may not be the biggest star, but is remotely recognizable, they advertise. And the fact that she was never advertised was a shock to me to see her in this film. I was like, I don't think she's going to last very long. But I think it's a shame because I feel like they could have done something with her character if she survived. I feel like they could have had that as maybe I don't know. Anyway,
And she's amazing. Like, if anyone's like, who are you talking about? Kiernan Shipka was Sabrina in the Sabrina TV show for Netflix. She was also in the Amazon Prime movie Toad Big Killer. She's in a lot of stuff, but like she in everything I've ever seen her in.
Well, she was very famous. She grew up on Mad Men, so she played the daughter of
Yes, she did.
What's his name? John Hamm.
John Hamm. But yeah, she's a leading actor. She's not like an ensemble cast member. She's the face on the poster girl. So this was really surprising. Maybe she just really liked Twister or the director or their friend. I haven't been able to find anything.
Look, sometimes I think though, like it is one of those things that I'm sure some actors sign up and they want a bigger role, but then sometimes they want to be involved and there's a small part for them, small window for them to do another film or another show, and that they jump at the chance to just be involved. And maybe that was the part for her. Maybe, I don't know, maybe she had other things happening. I don't know. But I do think sometimes when you get good people like that, like I understand, again, a movie we fucking love, Scream, one of the biggest twists of all time was, well, Drew Barrymore, she's a star. She's in this whole film. She's going to be the main star. She's killed in the first 15 minutes.
Yes.
I know that's become a thing, but I sort of think to myself, still, you've got this young actress that's, again, on the rise, and you're kind of like, and you kill her off in 10 minutes? That just doesn't seem like a smart, strategic decision to make. But
no, it's an odd choice.
Yeah.
It does bring you, though, to another cameo in this film that I was delighted in, that comes at the very end of the film when they're at the airport, and the airport parking guy who's trying to shove Glenn Powell's goes is Paul Scheer, who is an amazing comedy actor, character actor. He got famous in the show The League. He's done a bunch of stuff, but and that is a cameo where the movie wants you to know, oh, it's Paul Scheer. Like, he's almost winking at the camera. Yeah. It's great. But I saw an interview. I was like, what the fuck is Paul Scheer showing up in the final little scene? He did an interview. I don't know if this is him just being funny or if this is real. I choose to believe it's real. But in an interview where he talked about he is the legacy character for the Twister movie because his mum was an extra in the original Twister when she was pregnant with him. So you can see this pregnant woman in the background.
He's older.
That's what he said. Surely. That's the interviews he's given. That's what he said, and that's why he's in Twisters. Now, I don't know if it's real or not, but I want to believe it in my heart because that's a great story.
Right. I thought he seems older than that, though. That doesn't really line up. But anyway, that's okay.
Who knows?
I'll take that. I'll take that on board. On board.
I just love that he at least he's doing press about it.
Yeah.
He's going around I'm in Twisters, baby. Why isn't Kim Shipka doing that?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say now that you bring that up, though, are you? I guess one of the interesting things about this sequel, which is sort of almost unusual for a sequel these days, is it's fairly standalone. There is a little bit of a reference to Dorothy, but really there is no link to the original film. There's no Helen Hunt. Daisy is not the daughter of Helen Hunt. There's no reference to Bill Paxton's character. There's just absolutely no links. Apart from the area and the fact that there's Twisters, it's quite a separate film in itself, which is very unusual this day and age. I was still expecting Daisy as auntie or mother or someone that we meet later on in the film to be Helen Hunt, and or somebody else reference, or we find out that Glenn Powell's character is related to Bill Paxton's character or something along those lines, and there's a reference and we go to a house and there's a photo or something. There's nothing, and I don't have an issue with that, but I was gobsmacked that there was not even a reference.
Cable, I have nothing but issues with this. For a couple of reasons. So I will, before I say this, I will say I enjoyed this movie. I went to the cinema, I watched it, I had a great time. This film wants you, the audience, to wholeheartedly buy into the fact that Jo, played by Helen Hunt in the original, is Daisy Edgar Jones's character's mum. And they do this by, they hide the mother the whole way through. They do that thing where you see mum on the phone, but you don't hear the voice, you don't cut to the other person on the line. And then she comes to the farmhouse and you're like, oh my God, she's going. It comes at the halfway point in the film. You're like, holy shit, here it comes. And she walks into the house and then you're walking like, This is here we go. She's Helen Hunt's daughter. They did it. She's going to be Bill and Joe's daughter. And the camera pans around to a photo of her and her mum is Moira Tierney for no reason fucking ever instead of Helen Hunt. And you're like, what's happening? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And then the movie keeps going as if to go, gotcha. And what it felt like to me is if you sat down your kids on December the 24th and you were like, big day tomorrow, guys. Someone's coming, aren't they? And they went, oh my God. And they woke up the next morning and there was no presents and no tree. And you went, Santa didn't come. That's the surprise this year.
Yeah.
Didn't see it coming. That's what it felt like they were doing by putting Moira Tierney in Helen Hunt's place. Now, when the credits rolled, I was raged. I actually sat through the entire credits for a post-credit scene because I was so convinced that Helen Hunt was going to show up in a post-credit scene to set up the next Twisters movie where they bring the two films together. Once I realized and accepted that Helen Hunt wasn't going to be Daisy Edgar Jones's mum in this movie, I was like, okay, it's a misdirect, and it's actually going to be Glenn Powell's parents. Glenn Powell is going to be the son of Joe. And at the airport scene, I was like, he's going to get a phone call from his mum at the airport, and it's going to cut, and it's going to be Helen Hunt being like, hey, what's going on? He's like, oh, he's the... No, we didn't get that. We got nothing. The only legacy character in this movie is fucking Dorothy the Machine. That shows, in a million years, did I never think that was going to be the legacy character we got in Twisters.
And to me, that sort of feels a bit like a bit of a cheat. Like, I mean, it doesn't... Did that feel like it made sense to you that it was there?
It made no sense. Like, if you're going to do that, at least have Joe be the professor at the university they all studied at.
Yeah.
Like, or one of the original Storm Chasers. Like, you could get Todd Field. You could get Alan Ruck. Alan fucking Ruck is in Twister. He just finished up on Succession. He's a big star right now. Him being in this movie would make sense from a character point of view, and it would make sense to the audience because older generations like us would be like, oh my God, it's Alan Ruck. He was in Twister. And younger generations who may not have seen the first one be like, oh my God, that's the fucking guy from Succession. He's so famous right now.
Yeah.
Get him and have a scene. My God, have a scene where they see a photo of like Bill and Dusty hugging and talk about how they got too close one day and a twister killed Bill and Dusty because Philip Seymour Hoffman and Bill Paxton have both sadly passed away and it'll be a way for the film to acknowledge that they're dead. And we in the audience be like, oh shit, man, they're both dead. That's so sad. But also the audience of the movie would be like, oh, wow, that's a great way to honor those. Like, the university students who have Dorothy, obviously they know somebody who's connected with the... Just show them on camera. You've got Todd Field. You've got even the guy who played the preacher, who's like the least famous one. Like, have Aunt Meg be the next door neighbor of Daisy. Like, literally anything. And I've read a few things that piss me off about it.
Well, I think I've read the same thing you have read, so we'll put a pin in that. We'll come back to it. But now that we're talking it through, and God, look, I don't want to feel like I'm kind of... There's a part of me going, I'm happy for you guys. You didn't have to lean into fan service by bringing people back ad hoc or for no real reason like a lot of films do. But this is the kind of film, I think, and franchise that actually works to bring people back. Because how many people chase Tornadoes one? And it's not
in
like
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
They're both set in Oklahoma, by the way.
Yeah,
it's not like it's in a different country.
But even then, like, I mean, how much does that even happen around the world? But it's very well known, at least from us in Australia, where it's, cyclones, tornadoes are not really a thing. We get them sort of off the coast. They can cause a few storms and stuff like that in the tropics and that. But really, Twisters is middle America and, like you said, Oklahoma and some of these other cities that unfortunately have them, Kansas. So that group of people that chase tornadoes or do all that sort of scientific stuff would be a small group of people that would intermingle and know each other enough that you feel like, well, there would be a connection. Like you said, whether it's Alan Ruck's character, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Joe, all these characters, someone would know, or there would be crossover, or there'd be someone, like you said, that would be the son or the daughter or the niece or the nephew of, that I think it would make sense to have one of those characters come back or be still involved. So I feel like they may have missed an opportunity by not having that connection. Now, the more I think about it, I'm like, I was kind of, again, I was wrapped. I thought, it's cool that they didn't have to rely on the first movie to have a story, which again, we'll get to how we feel about this movie overall. But the more I think about it, I think, again, that tornado chasing group of people is going to be very niche. They're going to know a lot of people. You're going to, like, you see all the different teams intermingle and cross paths and know each other and all that sort of stuff. It's like, well, how does someone not know Joe? Or, like you said, like all these other characters for the first one. As if, they're all retired? Or, even if they are, how are they not mentioned as, Billy was a legend. He's a legend of this. That's why I aspired to chase the Twisters, because of Billy. Like, well, I don't know. Anyway, that's my little rant over for that, because I feel like the more we've talked about it already, it's like, it's probably a missed opportunity.
Well, I don't think it's just a missed opportunity. I think it's pissing in the face of an opportunity. And so I was reading some interviews with Lee Isaac Chung, who's the director of this film, who, interesting choice for this movie, most famous for directing Minari, Oscar-nominated film, beautiful film about, a family, but no tornadoes or disasters in it. But I think they did a great job, however. I think they did an incredible job. They worked themselves so hard on this movie that they suffered from exhaustion and had to be taken off the movie for 2 weeks to go and rest up because they were dying. So I fully respect any director who is going to go that ham. But he said in interviews that there were two things he didn't want. He didn't want Joe, the character, Helen Hunt character, to be waiting at home by the phone for her daughter to call. He didn't want that to be like her future. He wanted her to still be out there in the field.
Yeah.
To which I say, you made the movie, so don't do that. Don't have the mum character be waiting home by the phone. Have her being out to do something else. You're in control of the movie. You can do whatever you want. The other thing he said is like he wanted this to be a standalone film that wasn't reliant on the original to sort of tell the story. To which I say, and I ask you, Cable, because I've been struggling with this over the last couple of days, is this movie a fucking sequel? It's not a sequel to the original. It's not a remake, although it does kind of a lot of the same thing. It's another movie about tornadoes, but it's not a sequel to Twister. The closest I can come up with is it's an anthology series now, and every movie has a totally different cast chasing a Twister, and the Twister is the main character we come back for. I mean, I don't know how to call this movie a sequel. How do you feel about this? I don't even know if it applies for our show, to be honest.
I kind of agree. It's one of those weird ones where it could be watched by anyone now that don't need to see the first one. You don't need to have any reverence for
it. Kind of wants you to not see the first one, I feel. Like,
yeah, and I look, there's a couple of Easter eggs in this film that obviously again tie back to the original, especially with Glenn Powell's truck being red and a similar newer model of the one that Bill Paxton had. You don't need to have seen the first one because again, a lot of the story, they're chasing tornadoes, but a lot of the story has nothing to do with the first one. Like you said, just has similar beats.
0% of the story has anything to do with it.
Yeah, it's weird. I kind of feel like now it's like a Twister movie that's like, well, let's just use the IP and tie this in as a sequel, but it really is essentially its own thing.
I feel like this is a sequel to Twister in that, like, you could say that the new Brad Pitt F1 movie that's coming out is a sequel to Fast and the Furious because it's like, it's got fast cars and it's about people driving fast, so it's a sequel. But that has as much in common with Twisters as Twisters does.
It's a bit. I hear what you're saying. It's a bit like any shark movie is now like, a shark movie in Jaws. It's like
Jaws. Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's look, and that's where I think they've tried to loosely have Dorothy in there, and again, I'm not sure what that was. Again, it didn't make logical sense, which is weird because
not if you're not going to bring any of the characters associated with Dorothy. All the Dorothys got destroyed in Twister. There are no Dorothys left. So where is this Dorothy coming from? Are we in an alternate timeline? What's happening?
It's interesting because I thought you were going to bring this up, and maybe you do know about this, that Helen Hunt was working and or pushing to do
Oh,
a
I got
sequel.
notes, baby.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll let you. You obviously got the note, so that was something I'd obviously read. Maybe just before I saw Twisters. I wanted to do a little bit of research, and it was great to hear that Helen Hunt was really pushing for it, and there was something in the works until that got canned. And the crazy thing is, that wasn't that long ago. It wasn't like it was 10 years ago. It was during COVID, and they've gone, nah. And then all of a sudden, 2 years later, there's a movie, and you go, well, what happened?
So Helen Hunt absolutely was doing that. Before Helen Hunt was doing that, Bill Paxton was trying to get his sequel up and running back in, I think, around 2012. And there was a script and there was like pre-production, and he was going to direct it. This is after he directed Frailty, his only director film that he directed, which got good response. And he was like,
That's
all
a good
right, I want to
movie,
make Twisters. It's a great film. He's like, I want to make Twisters 2. He had the script, he was ready to go. He was going to star in it, direct in it. It was going to be a direct sequel. And then budget concerns kind of put everything on hold. And then they just stopped pre-production. And then sadly, Bill Paxton passed away. Then Helen Hunt was like, I've got an idea for a Twister sequel. Now, Helen Hunt's Twister sequel, her idea, which I think is a great idea, it was going to be she was going to be in it, but it was going to be set at a HBCU, a historically black college university, and it was going to be all black, Hispanic, brown cast. So basically the opposite of traditional Twister, not white scientists. So
I was going to say, it sounds like Dangerous Minds.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it was going to be all of the scientists and the tornado chasers and the climatologists were all going to be from this HBCU, because she had a bit of a problem sort of after the fact. She was like, not just white people are scientists, and she wanted to represent. So she had this script they were going to make. In this, she had sort of worked with these students to make the next version of Dorothy that you put it into a tornado, and what it does when you put it into a tornado is it kills the tornado. And if that sounds familiar to anyone listening, it's because that's the plot of Twisters. Now, she was writing this movie with an actor and writer called Daveed Diggs, who is from Hamilton, and who's very, very talented. He was going to star in it. They were co-writing it. He has done a couple of interviews where he has said that they got to sort of the point where they were pitching it. The studio flat out refused to see Helen Hunt for any. They wouldn't even have a meeting to discuss the possibility or talk about the script. They just flat out refused. Doors in the face. No, thank you, no, ma'am. We don't care that you're Academy Award winner Helen Hunt, who wants to bring back this incredibly successful and money-making film. They just wouldn't do it. And then, like you said, a few years later, we have Twisters with a major plot point, or a much more diverse cast, and a major plot point that they are building a machine to suck the tornado out of a tornado. Now, according to Daveed Diggs, he thinks, I think in one of the he said there was some, quote, not so great business going on behind the closed doors, which basically sounds like the studio had their own thing going and they just decided to rip off some ideas. And if they never took a meeting with Helen Hunt, they didn't have to be accused of it. I don't really know what's going on there. The whole thing sounds a bit iffy, but
well, what's the deal with Helen Hunt?
That's our answer. Well, I think that's our answer why she's not in Twisters, because she had her own Twister. They refused to talk to her. Someone probably did at some stage in the development of Twisters come to her and go, do you want to come and have a small role or even a big role in Twisters? And she probably said, kiss my fucking ass. No, I don't. I had my own movie and you guys...
We need to get Helen Hunt on this podcast. I want to know this story because... like I said, like I have no issue with Helen Hunt. I absolutely rate her, but again, she's not someone that gets me running to the cinema. But like you said, she can act. She's won an Oscar, and
this is one of her most famous roles.
So why is she on the out? Like what? I feel like, is she outspoken enough that she's upset people? Because that seems weird that she wouldn't even be involved in a pit. Anyway, that's interesting.
It's baffling. It's baffling that she's alive and she's kicking and she's still a fantastic actress and she's still a bankable star. And I don't know. Look, I don't know how the machinations of Hollywood, but that bit annoyed the hell out of me. That is a lot of things that really frustrated me about this movie. I want to go reset a little and go back to the positives for me personally. Starting with, I fucking love this title. You know, I get caught up on titles. Oh, fuck, I love this title. I'm so glad because this was the title that was pitched like 10 years ago when someone was like, they're making a Twister sequel. It's called Twister. They did it. I love them. What I also love in this movie is Daisy Edgar Jones and Glenn fucking Powell. I think they are incredible together in this movie.
Yeah.
Did you like the characters of Kate and of what's his name? I keep going to call him Wyatt Earp. It's like Tyler Owens or something.
Yeah, Tyler.
He's basically like a modern day cowboy, and he's
got his own t-shirts.
So I want one so badly. I'm sure the internet already has them.
Yeah, I'm sure they're on Etsy somewhere.
Yeah, I love it. I love everything about it. I love his whole thing. It's interesting because they did basically take all the elements of Twister and just kind of put them in a bag, shake them up, and pull them out again. So this time you have the rich, fancy fuckers who are just in it for the money, but they're the main characters at first. And then you've got like the rebellious wild crew, and they're not the main characters this time, but
they are the cowboys. They are the cowboys.
Yeah. The Bill characters with the wild ones, and the Joe characters with the uppity fucks, and the bad guy. Kind of, I don't know. That we'll get to that, but that is my one kind of what the fuck happened there thing with the Anthony Ramos character. But the way this movie looks and feels and sounds, like I don't care it's a tornado alley. I want to live in the Oklahoma of this movie. Every time like a truck drives past and there's country music going on and like woohoo, I was like, yeah, fuck it, put me in, coach. Like I just loved experiencing this movie. Did you have a fun time with it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Maybe I went in with low expectations. I mean, I watched, like I said, I didn't grow up with Twister. I watched it in the last 18 months, watched it again recently leading into this. I don't know what it was. I didn't feel like this was going to be a great film at all, but I really enjoyed the ride. It was a lot of fun. The science of it, obviously it's Hollywood science, and ridiculous,
I love that they didn't update the science.
No, but I love just the little things, obviously Glenn Powell. I was like, how is he getting so close? But he's got like the drill bits on his...
That was such a cool thing.
Yeah, and it's like, he's like, he knows what he's doing, and then the fireworks. I'm like, that's so cowboy. But then when they go to the rodeo and, that's what he did. I like some of those set pieces, and it was just like, this is good. And then the funny thing is that obviously they go to the cinema and then that's getting ripped apart, and it was a lot better than I was actually expecting, so it was a lot of fun. I
did love that in that final bit where they're like running to find cover when they've got the huge twister heading to the town, and somebody yells like out loud, very loudly in the middle of Twister, "We've got to get to the cinema, everyone! Go to the cinema. Let's all go to the..." And they just keep saying go. And I'm like, point taken, guys.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really fun. I can't remember what movie. Is it Bride of Frankenstein or something?
Yeah, one of those.
Which is nice because in the original, they're watching The Shining. It's nice that they get classic horror going on. And I love that.
Well, even even that Frankenstein, it wasn't quite the part where it's alive, but like you subconsciously, that's so famous with those sort of movies. You go, well, there's a twist. It's alive, It's kind of like this monster coming to rip them, to shreds, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's super fun. The rodeo one you mentioned, I think that's probably like one of the best bits. And I know sometimes as an Australian, sometimes when I'm watching movies where there's like a real strong sense of like, America's the greatest in the world, yeehaw! I kind of feel like, calm the fuck down, guys. Like, come on. But in this movie, it worked somehow. I don't know, all of like the yeehaw, God bless America stuff, I was kind of like, yeah, fucking yeehaw. Some fun little cameos in that scene that I did learn about, speaking of like, who's going to be Tyler's parents in the rodeo scene, sitting directly behind Kate and Tyler is an older couple who are Glenn Powell's real life parents.
Oh, wow.
Who I learned have appeared as extras in every single film he's made since like Spy Kids 3D when he was in. It's like kind of his thing. He gets his parents in. The other big fun cameo in that is when they run to the motel.
No? Oh. No,
not his dog.
His dog is in the film as well, isn't
his
it?
real dog, Hot Brisket, I think is his dog's name.
Which is weird. Hot Brisket!
Great. Look, I used to have a cat called Dr. Elliot Orangeface, so bring it on, man. Yeah. But when they run to the motel and they're trying to convince people to get in, and that dude's at the counter yelling, like, nothing works in this shithole. I hate this place. The actor who did that is Bill Paxton's son. So that was a nice little moment. It's kind of weird that like they're going to put Bill Paxton's son in and make him the biggest asshole in the movie, and then kill him. But I thought that was really nice. That whole sequence was fun. You don't really care that like it just happens that the pool is empty. It just happens that they've cut away a bit of the wall to expose all the pipe for repairs, and they can hold onto the pipes. I didn't give a shit, honestly. Like they threw a tanker trailer at them while a tornado was going on. More num 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 num. That's what I want from this movie. It has it's not as fun or as funny as Twisters, but it has a real 1996 vibe. Like it's a spiritual successor where this movie could have come out in 1996 and you'd be like, yeah, like they don't explain anything. Good.
Do you think, and maybe because I didn't grow up, like I said, put me to 2 watches of Twister and you probably 200 times a Twister.
Honestly, probably.
Do you think? I felt like the relationship and the chemistry between the main stars of this film was better than Bill and Helen Hunt in the first one, or because Bill had the dilemma. Bill had the dilemma of having the fiance there and the whole.
Yeah, he's got Jamie Getz there.
And then and there's that was happening, and then obviously, like you said, and maybe having Philip Seymour Hoffman and Alan Ruck and all these other really good actors, chewing up some of the scenery too. I don't know if that felt essential, whereas this one did feel very much, this is them bonding and starting to grow together. And I enjoyed that. I felt like that was a stronger relationship in the movie compared to... No? Yeah.
Look, I think it's sort of... It's interesting comparing the two dynamics because I think Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, I think they're incredible in Twister. And I think what works is Bill Paxton is sort of an everyman kind of guy. Like in this movie, I don't know exactly how old he is, but if you told me he was 35, if you told me he was like 48, I'd believe you. Like he's just kind of this rough, he's wearing this dickhead sports coat a bit. He's got this really severe receding hairline. Like he's a good looking dude, but he's not jacked. He's not like, he doesn't look like he just walked out of a magazine. And Helen Hunt, who is incredibly beautiful, but they do a great job of making her look quite like grubby and believable as someone who spends their life running around in paddocks and stuff. And they both have an inherent charm that you can believe that they could attract and repel each other in equal measure until eventually like they break through that thing and she gets past her trauma of her dad and they can finally kind of be together. With Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar-Jones, the way those characters are set up, Tyler is set up to be such a fucking douchebag from the outside looking in, and she is so opposed to that. The only way that they get past that initial hurdle is that he is unspeakably hot. If he was an everyman, if he looked like Bill Paxton, she's never giving him a second chance. She's just been like, fuck that guy. He's a douche country boy. I'm out. But because he looks like Glenn Powell, who literally walks around in a wet t-shirt at one point, just to like hit home the fact that like, in case you weren't sure, I'm jacked under this. Like, beautiful. Give me more. No. And also, obviously, Daisy Edgar-Jones is incredibly beautiful. But the fact that they are two extremely attractive people, it's kind of like they are both willing to overlook the fact they kind of don't like each other at first because they're like, that guy's a dick, this YouTube fuckhead who's just kind of a moron, but fuck, is he hot? And he's probably like, this chick, she's such a pain in the ass, but she's a babe. And I think that's an interesting difference because there's no way that she's giving him a second chance if he doesn't look like that. And you know how I know that? Because she doesn't give Anthony Ramos a second chance, and the guy basically tells her, I would die for you. And she's like...
Yeah, I thought that was a bit weird to have that he was sort of... Because the other thing was, it was like the other guy she was with that died, they could have been brothers. Like, they look so similar.
Except that guy is the hot brother. They could be brothers if one of the brothers was a football star and the other one was a chess star.
True, but they had both had a very similar look that if you had said they were brothers, it wouldn't surprise me. Look, I hear what you're saying, but I did love the whole, this almost untamed Glenn Powell, Tyler, whatever. he's this big YouTube star. He's the cowboy. He can't be tamed, but he's like, oh, this girl's really interesting. This is someone I haven't met before, and she obviously she's smart. There's an intelligence there, and then I think what works. Yeah, you're right. I mean, both being amazingly attractive does help, but I do wonder if it did feel like there was still this common ground, that they had this common enemy. She had this goal of the tornado. He's kind of still in that same thing, and he believes in her, and it's like this convergence of things that are supposed to happen.
I think there's one moment in this movie that I cheered. Like I wasn't in a packed theater. I actually
I
fucked up
wasn't
a bit because the only time, which is surprising because this movie is making a lot of money,
Mm.
but the only session I could get to was quite early in the morning, and it was a mums and bubs session. So I was on a session, the lights are on a bit,
Yeah.
and the sound is a bit lower,
Yes,
which I was
I've done
really
that. I've done that with Bad Boys.
because there's a few scenes, and you would have found this with Bad Boys. There's a few scenes like, man, if the sound was cranking, this would have really popped. But in any case, I was sitting myself. There were some mums and bubs up the back, and there's a scene where a town gets leveled, and Tyler and his friend are looking for a lost dog.
Mm.
And they're helping and they're looking, and she's going, oh, okay, well, maybe, I don't know. And he shows up later with a pizza. Really great scene. He's like, I bought you a pizza. She's like, thanks. And then she's closed the door in his face and then goes back. And then obviously she thinks about how hot he looked. That's the other reason she would go back to that door. She sits there, she's like, that was a tight t-shirt. And then she goes and opens the door and she says, did you find the dog? And he's leaning against the door and he goes, of course I did. And that moment where he just like so effortlessly, he's like, of course I did. If he wasn't already, that moment made Glenn Powell a movie star.
Yeah.
That was Harrison Ford. That was Tom Cruise. That was Matthew McConaughey. Like, that was every superstar leading man you've seen before. He nailed it. And as soon as he did that, I was like, I do not care what else he does in this movie. I love Tyler now. And also, Glenn Powell, like, nobody's going to be able to afford him anymore. He's about to become the most famous man in the world because he just proved to everyone, I can be the guy.
Yeah.
And boy, is he the guy in this movie. He's so good.
And I feel like he's going to be the bigger guy in Top Gun 3, but that's a whole other argument. But
well, you know who is the #1 champion of Glenn Powell and this movie at the moment is Tom fucking Cruise.
Mhm.
He's running around telling everyone like, I'm blown away by Glenn. Glenn is the bae, but he's publicly like, he's beating his chest, being like, and he doesn't do that for anyone. Go back and check. Unless he's promoting his own movie, but Tom Cruise does not promote shit.
Was Tom at the premiere, the world premiere?
Oh, he might be at the premiere. I thought you were going to say, is he attached? He's not a producer or anything on this movie.
No,
He's just honestly,
no.
He wants to be in the Glenn Powell business.
Oh,
he sees where this is
have you seen The Hitman? Was it
Hitman? I have seen Hitman, yeah. Just Hitman, yeah. Netflix movie, yeah. That's a Richard Linklater movie. A movie, just as a quick aside, if people like Glenn Powell and are like, I want more, a movie I highly recommend is a movie he did called Everybody Wants Some. That came out about 10 years ago. Richard Linklater film, kind of went under the radar a bit about this university baseball team in the 80s. He's in it. A lot of great, like White Russell is in it. A lot of great actors are in it. It's amazing. And he is amazing in it. And that's the first time I saw him and went, oh, movie star. But it's taken this long for the rest of the world to catch up. Speaking of the characters in this film, someone we haven't spoken about. So the plot of this movie, if you've gotten this far in the episode and you haven't seen it, God bless you. We've ruined the shit out of it for you. But if you're wondering what actually happens, the plot is that Kate, her friends and her boyfriend dies. She feels all the guilt. She runs away to New York.
She's got survivor's guilt pretty much.
Yeah, but the other person who kind of, I mean, they do survive, but they're not actually in the tornado, so they can't really say they survive, is Harvey, who's played by Anthony Ramos, who is sort of the third lead in this movie. And he comes back and drags into the fray. He is the rich guy now. This plot point, it's a movie about chasing tornadoes. You can't get caught up. This is the only plot point where I just couldn't quite get over it. So it's been 5 years from the opening when everyone dies to when he comes back. And in those 5 years, he has moved back to Miami, rediscovered himself, joined the army, served in the army, been deployed in the army, left the army, gotten special tech that no one else has somehow, started his own business, and been in business for what seems like at least more than a year. I don't know how that timeline works. I don't know how 5 years he accomplishes all those things. But in any case, he comes out. He started Stormpa or whatever the worst name, and he started it with a partner whose name is Scott.
Yep.
Scott is basically, he's kind of a stand-in for the Carrie Yules character in this. He has the
Yeah.
same dorky hat. He's an asshole. No one likes him. Do you know when we're going to see Scott, played by the actor David Cornsweet, next?
He's going to be Superman.
And I'm worried because he does such a good job of being a piece of shit in this movie.
Yes.
I don't know if he can be nice as Clark Kent.
Mm.
Like, I was looking at him, I'm like, how are you meant to do what Christopher Reeve did?
Yeah.
You're not charming. Like, swap him out for Glenn Powell. Glenn Powell should be Superman.
Yeah.
Imagine Glenn Powell in the cape just floating down and smiling. You'd be like, whatever you want, man. Let's rock.
Yeah.
Like, I think David Cornsweet is a great actor, but he plays a piece of shit in this movie.
Mhm.
And I'm like, and you're going to be Superman next? I don't know how that adds up.
Ooh.
I was bummed out, and I don't know how you feel like this. Apart from the opening, no named characters die in this movie.
Mm.
Like, 3 people died pre-credits. The bad guys don't die.
Yeah.
No beloved characters die. You've got a whole crew of and I guess they don't want that kind of energy for this movie, I suppose.
Mm.
I guess they want it to be really fun and light. But even in Twister, like, the bad guys die.
Yeah.
You know, they fuck around and find out.
Mm.
They didn't kill anyone in this
Yeah.
movie. It felt a little. Did you notice that? Did that bother you that, like, in this wave of destruction, only random extras die?
Yeah. Like you said, Bill Paxton's son, the arsehole, you know, him and his girlfriend get in their truck and that just gets ripped to shreds. And then the poor attendant at the motel, he makes the wrong step or doesn't get there quick enough.
He doesn't listen. He doesn't listen.
Yeah, and he
This
dies.
is what we need to learn from this movie. Listen to Glenn Powell,
Mm.
and everything will be okay. If you don't listen to Glenn Powell,
But you're right.
they'll eat you.
I do think, unfortunately, some movies, Disaster Movie is probably a little bit different from, like, say, a slasher film, but, you know, one of our favourite franchises, Scream. I mean, I think that's the problem with 6. I think we both enjoyed 6 at the time, but the 6 suffers from, there's no stakes because no one of consequence gets killed in that film. It's all no-name extras.
Five and 6, no one dies.
Yeah, so, you know, and yeah, you're right. No one here. I think they make the big call. They kill the people off that had the dilemma at the start and the reason why she's not involved anymore and she's just in New York working on the weather. But yeah, 3 people die of consequence early on, and then after that, no one. I think I can't remember anyone with a name.
No
Dies.
named character. I guess technically James Paxton's son character is called Cody and his girlfriend is Kaylee. And if you pick that up, I guess named character. But
Yeah.
they're not characters.
No.
They're fodder. And that just tweaked my nipples a little bit in the wrong way. This film written by these are the writing credits. So Anne-Marie Martin and Michael Crichton created the
That's weird.
characters.
Oh yeah.
They created the characters for Twister.
But they're not in it.
No, well, Michael Crichton has
Yeah.
passed away, but they
Yeah.
created the characters. The story credit goes to Joseph Kaczynski, who directed Top Gun Maverick,
Yes.
and written by Mark L. Smith, who is sort of I guess like a pretty well regarded. Like, he's done things. He did Overlord, which was like the Nazi zombie movie that was pretty badass. He also did The Revenant, Midnight Sky. Like, so he's done some sort of more highbrow stuff. Pretty stellar writing crew to come in with this, like, for what is a throwaway disaster movie in most circumstances. Like, obviously, this movie has been tapped from before production to be a big deal.
Yeah.
You know, Academy Award-winning director, a who's who of writers and directors creating the story, the guy in Hollywood is the lead. You really, like, they have built this up to be something big, and it's paying off. Dividends, I think, so far. Apart from the little tweaky things, did you get caught on anything in the story? Like I said, apart from how did he do all that in 5 years, I didn't really get caught up on any story stuff. I just was like rolling with the vibe.
No, I feel like
fun, right?
you're right. I
Fun.
hadn't thought too much in depth about what he'd done in those 5 years not adding up, and once you started illustrating, I'm like, ooh, Yeah, that doesn't really line up. That's not reality. Unless you went to the army and was out within a year or something like it doesn't feel feasible, but it is what it is. I did. I actually did like the fact that he was kind of, or at least he thought he was a good guy. He was continuing his research and stuff that he likes to do with his new partner Scott, but their financier is, and how they get paid is kind of like that's how they're shafting people by paying for their land and at least giving them an out, but then taking their land at a cheaper rate because of the tornado and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, which
So,
I think there is a
and
line, and I don't know if I misheard it, where they say that Scott introduced that guy as his uncle. So I think that guy is meant to be Scott's uncle, and that's how they got into this. That's all a bit under-explained, and I don't think in a bad way, because you don't really want to spend a lot of time getting bogged down in like real estate law in a tornado movie. You just want to get the idea that these guys are fleecing good innocent people and therefore they are the bag. And that's kind of the twist, is that Anthony Ramos, Harvey, who starts out almost as like the Dusty character pre everyone dying. He's like the wild guy who wakes up hungover and has the long hair, and then he gets serious and now he's evil. There was something that I kind of confused me a bit, because they thread in Harvey is in love with Kate.
yeah,
He says that, you can see in the opening thing, he's in love with her. It's very clear. And then he says, I would have done it. There's a time in my life I would have done anything for you. And he clearly has unresolved feelings for her. He gets really jealous when she like is into Tyler. Then it turns out he's the bad guy who's ripping off all these people. He suffers absolutely no repercussions for this act. Neither does Scott, really. Scott gets some mud on him, and that is the end of Scott's comeuppance for ripping off all these people. But then at the end of the movie, in the credit sequence where they're showing like all the newspaper, so Tyler and Kate and Harvey go into business together. So Harvey, who is still in love with Kate, who lied to her and ripped off all these people who she's really angry with, she immediately forgives. And then Tyler, who has always hated him because of what he was doing with Stormpa, they're all going to go into business together and everything's going to be fine. And he's not going to go insane with jealousy that she's with Tyler right in front. I just feel like the next Twisters movie is going to be like Harvey's going to become a mad scientist and go insane. He's going to build a machine that actually creates Twisters instead of destroys them. And he's going to deploy them all over cities and kill people. And he's going to try and kill Tyler. And he's going to make it look like it's Tyler's fault. It's going to turn into like a supervillain movie because he's going to lose his mind. I don't know what else is going to happen if it's not that for the next one.
I see. It's funny. I saw it a different way. I kind of feel like Harvey was he kind of maybe knew that other people were getting ripped off, and he wasn't necessarily benefiting or was happy to kind of do what he loved doing and getting paid for it, and maybe paid a little bit handsomely. And someone else, I feel like Colonel Sanders looks like he was making the money.
He's the one making the money.
He's making the money because he's financing, and it's one of those things of, well, we need to be paid, we want to do this job, but we're accepting money who's someone financing us, and we're happy to kind of turn a blind eye because they're financing us, but they're really up to no good. So I kind of looked at it more Scott and maybe, like you said, the uncle, Colonel Sanders, or whatever his name was, I've already forgotten.
Colonel Sanders, who gives a shit?
I don't know if Harvey was necessarily pocketing extra money. I feel like they were probably just getting paid the usual, and it was the big guy was making a lot of money. I feel like that.
I mean, he knew he was.
Yeah,
he knew he was a bad guy though, because when he and Scott are having the meeting with Colonel Sanders in the diner, and Kate comes over, he's like, "Oh, go away, like go get some breakfast. I'll talk to you later." Because he doesn't want her to see that he's having a meeting about how to rip people. He is complicit in all of it. He knows exactly what he's doing.
Okay,
and he also, I think, he wants. He may not be making a lot of money out of the land deal, but he needs Kate to help him get the satellites deployed correctly, or the sonar deployed correctly, because then they can get the data, and then he can sell that data, and that's where he makes his big bucks.
Yeah.
So,
see, that's probably more where I saw it, is that was his angle, and more so that, okay, he knows this other guy's making a lot of money off the peril of these other people. He might not necessarily be gaining from it, but he knows about it, and he knows, he's smart enough to know Kate doesn't need to know about this kind of thing. So that's how I saw it. But yeah, you're right. He may be making good money off it as well, like getting paid, each time. I don't know, but I definitely agree. I definitely agree with you that him having the data and them having the tech to be able to predict these things and or pass it on, that's the payday. But yeah.
Do you think we're getting another one? Do you think we're getting a third Twister movie?
Possibly. I think they probably would, if this goes well and like you said, it's making money, they probably would churn one out pretty quickly. Having said that, I would, if they do a third one. I'm not saying they have to shove it down our throats, but I feel like they need to acknowledge the first one somehow, or
If they do
someone
a third
comes
one, it
back.
has to be
Yeah.
the two coming together. It's got to be Helen. Helen Hunt has to be in.
Yeah, I feel
Otherwise,
like
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, I really think that's a smart decision to bring Helen back in some scientific way, or sorry, she's in the science of it all, and she's praising Kate. I feel like there's something there, or like I said, like we find out that Glenn is the illegitimate child of Billy and Joe or something. I don't know. It's
You know what would have been good is in Twister, Bill Paxton's fiance, Dr. Melissa,
Yes,
is
yeah,
a
well-
fertility because what if he's the child of like some couples that she counseled to help, and that he was born when she was on the phone talking to
Yes.
those people about this is how you're gonna have the baby, you're gonna do this. He's like, yeah,
yeah.
like even that, like literally anything. I would have been like,
Yeah.
oh, that's a
Well,
great
see,
bit.
it's funny you say that because I was actually thinking about that before. Wouldn't it be funny if she was the throwback that we weren't expecting and she had some sort of connection? But then I'm thinking, well, that's where you start to stretch the reality of the film. But you're right, if she's fertility, well, maybe he was conceived during Twister. And like I said, that was one of those phone calls. But yeah, it's look, I would like them to lean into the first one and maybe the third film connect them both a little bit better. Show that they're in the same universe. And that's the thing. We're not asking for a multiverse to bring random characters back that shouldn't be back. It's like, yes, this could actually make sense. Like, again, multiverse.
You just said they're twisters, right? In the next movie, they're trying to figure out some stuff. They put something in. I don't know. They create a mega twister. It rips a hole in the fabric of time.
Mhm.
Someone gets sucked to the other side. Who walks out? It's Dr. Joe. She's there. Bring Alan Ruck along as well. Like, honestly, just have like one other character. Like, what the fuck is? Oh yeah, that's right. He was in that. And then the two worlds are together, and that's, man. What? Now you've got twisters that not only can destroy property but can rip a hole in the fabric of space and time.
But it's Twister.
That would be the best movie ever.
But it's Twister, and then it's like the 3 that's the same as like in Alien 3, like that different.
No, you have Twister, but then you have the infinity symbol at the end because now you're just ripping through everything forever and ever and ever. This movie currently has made $80.5 million. It is on track to be the movie of the summer in terms of box office. The only thing that's really picked to rival it is another sequel, Deadpool and Wolverine, is kind of, if that hits where it's going, but that's really up in the air because of the current superhero downturn. They don't know if it is actually going to hit the way that they think it was going to hit. So this has been, it's not really a surprise, but it has been, I think, a bigger early success than they want. If it keeps tracking, it's going to make a lot. The original Twister made $494.5 million, which adjusted for inflation is $992 million. It was almost $1 billion movie. Like, it was a big deal. So I think we're getting a third one, honestly. Like, this one doesn't have to make.
And when you say those numbers, that's crazy to think they never went to a sequel. Especially if Bill.
It's crazy that when the lead is coming to you.
It's not like
I want to make it.
Well, it's not like even when you look at something like Speed and then Keanu Reeves goes, "Oh, I'm coming back," and they go, "Well, we'll get Sandra Bullock and we'll get Jason Patrick to look like."
Yeah, how the fuck did we get Speed 2 and not Twister 2?
And that's the crazy thing. It's like, well, Twister's so big. It's like, it's not like they were going to do a sequel and Helen Hunt and Bill said they weren't going to come back. Admittedly, at that time, maybe when there was talks of a sequel, a bit more immediate. Maybe they weren't available, but I
Well, I
couldn't
think that
imagine
was
those
just
two.
after, because I think 98 is when she wins her Oscar. So I think just after that, she's like, I'm an Academy Award winner now. Maybe I don't want to do disaster movies anymore.
Yeah,
Also,
but who
interesting you chose
knows?
Speed because the director of the original Twister, Jan de Bont, also directed Speed. So the man knows how
Yeah,
to blow shit up.
mm, he
Um,
does.
I think all of the nitpicking and the quibbles aside, I will never get over the fact that they wrote a movie where everything is set up to be the fact that Kate is Joe's daughter, and we go to the farmhouse and we're going to get Helen Hunt, and then for some reason it's not Helen Hunt, and I think it's Moira Tierney. I love Moira Tierney.
Mm.
She's probably the least believable farmer I've ever seen.
I kind of did think the same thing, but
Like,
yeah,
which is like the price of grain and feed keeps going up. I'm like, you don't know what those things are, Moira. What are you doing? Like,
yeah,
at least Aunt Meg was a sculptor. Like, she's out there
yeah.
literally mucking the pigs. And I was like, you're not a farmer.
Mm.
What's happening? I also, the other thing that Twisters did that I loved that follows on from Twister is they do the thing where, like, somebody shows up unexpectedly and the person whose house it is just happens to have enough food to feed an army and can whip it up like that. Like in the original Twister, I don't know
Yes,
if you remember, they go to Aunt
yes,
Meg's, they're like,
yeah,
food, and they come in and she's like got all of this steak and eggs and
yeah,
gravy
yeah.
and it's ready in like minutes. And it's the same with this one. The mother's like, we're eating outside, and you look at the spread, and I was like,
Yeah, for three
what?
people, like really?
How long was she here? The fuck is this 3 days later? That's so
Yeah.
much food. But I
Hmm.
love that they did that. Yeah, I'll never get over that disrespect of Helen Hunt in this. But that all aside,
I do. I think
it's
the
fun.
more you think about it, it's definitely like the massive tease because you're like, this girl looks like 100% she could be
She looks so much like
Joe's
her.
daughter, and then even there's a point where they actually have her kind of dressed. I can't remember if it was the rodeo, but she's kind of got the white sort of tank top type thing
She's
happening,
got the same outfit on
and it's like,
on
and
purpose.
that's they. I'm pretty sure I've read that that's a homage to that, but I was like thinking, oh my god, they're
It
doing that,
was.
yeah, and it's like no, and they, like you said, they totally tricked us because I totally thought they were going in. Like you said, like when you think about it, like the phone calls from mum and then, hanging up and we're not really hearing them, like, oh, she's totally going to go home. It's Helen Hunt. It's going
And
to
the age gap is perfect. Like it would work perfect, make perfect sense that
Yeah.
that was her daughter. Anyway, look, I know I'm harping on about it. It rattled me, and it took me out of the movie and
And
disappointed
just
me a lot. But
and just to go behind, like, go behind the curtain for people that are listening to this. You did say a few weeks ago in a text, I can't remember if it was between you, me, and Sean or Regan or somebody else, but you said Helen Hunt better be in this fucking film, pretty much. And I was like, yeah, and I was like, it sometimes happens in Hollywood where they're very good at keeping it under wraps that certain actors are coming
that's what I
back.
really was hoping.
And yeah, so
You ruined Christmas for me, Twisters. You
mm,
stole my Santa Claus. You
yeah.
sons
I mean,
of bitches.
like as we wind up, like final thoughts. Like, I mean, for me, I really enjoyed the ride, but I understand the nostalgia of the first one. That to not really have a concrete link between the two films is a little bit disappointing. So, and like I said, like the real fake out of, or the totally Helen's in this movie, and or I really thought if she's not the mother, she's the auntie or someone like. Yeah, or even if she was the professor at when she was going for this grant and it was going to be, and that's the whole thing for Dorothy being there. It was a link, and it's like they used none of them to link Helen Hunt back to this film.
It's almost like they went out of their way to be like, we could put her here, but we won't. Or we could put her here, but we won't. We can do what we want, but we're not going to. Like, fuck,
Yeah,
guys, come on.
yeah,
Look, you want to put Glenn Hunt and Daisy Edgar Jones in the middle of tornadoes in Middle America. I'll fucking be there opening weekend. Like, it was so fun. Make a Twister movie every 2 years. Do it. I love it. Just, put Helen Hunt in one of them, you sons of bitches. Come on.
yeah,
What are you doing?
yeah.
She's great. But I honestly, I still, even as we wrap up the end of this episode, I still don't know if this movie qualifies for our podcast because I can't in good conscience call it a sequel or a remake. or a reboot or a prequel, or it's like I said, I think maybe we're calling the Twister movies anthology movies now. But yeah,
Well, like you said,
what they did.
it's almost in that realm of Halloween 3, the season of the witch. It's like, oh, we're going to call it this, but and it's going
At
to have
least
same
Halloween
things.
3
Yeah.
had a cutaway to someone watching Halloween on TV. Like Michael Myers is still in it. They still acknowledged what they were doing.
Yeah.
This one is like, nah.
Yeah.
But
Well,
good, look, honestly, it's good. People should see it. I hope people see it. I hope it makes a lot of money. So we get more movies like this, you know, that are fun. Just go out and have a good time movies. I hope Glenn Powell becomes the movie star that I hope Hollywood allows him to be the movie star that he already is, because he really is good at it. He's really good at it, and he's fun. And I hope Daisy Edgar Jones gets a big bump out of this, because she's a good actor and she deserves to be in more stuff. I like her a lot. I think she's really good.
And hopefully
Keenan Shipka, for Christ's sake,
gets a full movie.
Fuck. The next Twister can just start with her just like dropping out of the sky, and she's like, "I'm alive!" And I'm like,
Yeah.
and then she can just be Twister.
Well, I was actually thinking that. It's like that'd be the multiverse of her coming back somehow, or just they find her.
Well,
just-
that's how we do it. Yeah, the rip opens and Keenan Shipka comes through. She's like, I didn't die, I got sucked into another dimension. And look who I found. And then she brings Helen Hunt in. And now you've got like Keenan Shipka and Helen Hunt are a team. And then you've got Glenn Powell and Daisy Edgar Jones are a team. And then, I don't know, maybe we can just like, maybe in one of the dimensions, it's an animated sequence, just so we can have Dusty and Bill in the movie just for a second.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I just want to watch. You know what? I'm gonna go watch Twister again. I've realized that's what I want. I just want to watch Twister. I'm gonna go and watch this.
Well,
I finish this episode.
I guess on that note, whether this is a sequel or not, let's just admit that not all sequels suck.
But all Twisters do.
Sequel suck fans.
By definition alone, they're inferior films.
They almost sequel and remake a quick warning. This episode is spoiler.